Welcome everyone to my Soldier Zero Anby guide. Anby is getting her S-Rank upgrade, transforming her into an attack agent. In this guide, I will go over Soldier Zero Anby's kit, her playstyles, drive disc sets, main and substats, W engine options, teams, and finally her Mindscapes. Keep in mind that Soldier Zero Anby is not out yet, and it's likely that there will be some changes by the time she's released. And without further ado, let's go over Soldier Zero Anby's kit. Soldier Zero Anby is an S-Rank attack agent with the electric attribute. As an attack agent, she deals damage and introduces a new mechanic called Aftershock. Her core skill enhancement bonus increases attack and crit rate. Anby's basic attacks will deal electric damage, and holding or repeatedly pressing her 5th basic attack will allow her to dash through an enemy multiple times. As part of her special, when Anby's attacks hit an enemy, she will apply the silver star mark onto the enemy. The mark can be charged 3 times, and for each charge, the enemy will receive a stack of white thunder. Once the enemy has a stack of white thunder, using Anby's normal special will consume a stack of white thunder and allow her to dash through the enemy, dealing electric damage and triggering an extra instance of damage called Aftershock. This Aftershock attack will deal electric damage. Once the silver star mark has been charged 3 times and 3 stacks of white thunder have been consumed, a lightning strike will fall at the enemy's location, dealing damage to nearby enemies. This lightning strike will also count as Aftershock damage. Having the silver star mark applied to an enemy will also increase Anby's damage. As part of her core skill, damage against enemies affected by the silver star mark will be increased by 25%. Additionally, if the enemy is marked with a silver star mark, crit damage received from an Aftershock will be increased by 30% of Anby's current crit damage. This doesn't mean that you need to prioritize crit damage over crit rate, as you still need crit rate to trigger a crit in the first place. In short, Anby's kit revolves around dealing Aftershock damage through charging the silver star mark. This mark can be charged 3 times, with each charge granting a stack of white thunder. Using Anby's normal special, consumes a white thunder stack and deals an instance of Aftershock damage. Once 3 stacks of white thunder have been consumed, a lightning strike will be launched, dealing further Aftershock damage. A silver star mark can also be fully charged by using Anby's X special or ultimate. And as for her faction bonus, if your squad contains a stun or support agent, which would almost always be the case, Anby's crit rate will be increased by 10%, and while Anby is the active character, all squad members' Aftershock damage to an enemy marked with silver star mark will be increased by 25%. The only other characters that can deal Aftershock damage are Trigger and Pulchra, who can both trigger the Aftershock damage from off-field, benefiting from Anby's Aftershock damage increase. With that out of the way, Anby's skill level priority would be to first level up her special and core skill. Then, you can level up her ultimate and basic attack, which both contribute to damage. You can also level up her dodge and assist as a secondary target. Soldier Zero Anby is a pretty simple character to play, who deals damage through her Aftershock attacks, which can be triggered by charging the silver star mark. As a newer character, she will of course be very strong and, in the right teams, on par with other attack agents like Evelyn. Anby is also pretty flexible in her team comps. As with other attack agents, she would usually be paired with another stun and a support agent, which is also what her faction bonus requires. There are a lot of strong support agents, including A-Rank agents like Nicole or Lucy. And as for a stun agent, Pulchra, an A-Rank agent, will be a pretty strong pick. Aside from Trigger and Soldier Zero Anby, Pulchra is the only other agent who can trigger an Aftershock, but she also buffs squad members' Aftershock damage. Pulchra should also be given for free during one of the upcoming events. This, combined with the strong A-Rank supports, should allow Anby to have strong and accessible team comps without requiring specific S-Rank units. But of course, Anby will also benefit from S-Rank units like Astra Yao or the upcoming stun agent, Trigger. Compared to other attack agents, Anby is very strong and has accessible team comps, and if you do need a damage dealer, Anby is a pretty decent pick. In terms of an electric attack agent, Anby should be slightly better in terms of damage, while also being slightly easier to play, in comparison to Harumasa, who was initially given out for free. However, if you already have Harumasa, you don't need to feel forced to pull for another electric attack agent, and will also be getting more agents in the future, some of which may be better value for your account, but as usual, you should pull for whoever you like. Moving on to drive disc sets, for Soldier Zero Anby's 4-piece set, the new Shadow Harmony set should be her best in slot. Shadow Harmony's 2-piece bonus will increase Aftershock and dash attack damage by 15%. And as for the 4-piece bonus, 1 stack will be gained after hitting an enemy with an Aftershock or dash attack. Each stack will increase attack and crit rate by 4%, stacking up to 3 times and lasting for 15 seconds. This drive disc set can increase attack and crit rate by up to 12%, and Anby can maintain a 100% uptime on this effect. Aside from the new set, Woodpecker Electro should also be a decent alternative, and not that far off. Hormone Punk or Puffer Electro can also be considered. Thunder Metal can be a decent option after triggering the electric attribute Anomaly, but it depends on how fast you can build up the attribute Anomaly, which makes it a bit more conditional compared to other sets. And as for the 2-piece drive disc options, similar to Evelyn, the best 2-piece option can depend on your current team comp. In this calculation, Anby is running in a team with Astra, who provides a large attack buff, while also granting bonus crit damage and a damage bonus. Generally, the difference is almost nothing between these different sets. A 2-piece Branch and Blade Song or Woodpecker can be great for increasing your crit ratio. A 2-piece Puffer Electro can be decent in teams where you have a lot of damage and attack buffs, or in teams with Rena, and a 2-piece Thunder Metal for the 10% electric damage bonus is almost always strong. You can also run a 2-piece Hormone Punk or Astral Voice for the attack buff. If you're not running Astra or not receiving a lot of electric damage buffs, a 2-piece Thunder Metal for the 10% electric damage would usually come out slightly on top. Moving on to main stats, for your 4th partition, you would usually want to go for either crit rate or crit damage. If you're running the Shadow Harmony Drive disc set, you would be gaining an additional 12% crit rate, not to mention her faction bonus, which grants 10% bonus crit rate, so you wouldn't want to go over 78% crit rate. For your 5th partition, electric damage bonus is usually the best option, but if you're running Astra or Rena, you could also use pen ratio. And as for the 6th slot, attack is the best option. As for substats, it's more or less the same. You would want crit rate and crit damage, then attack and pen. Moving on to W engines, keep in mind that small differences between W engines can depend on your specific team. In this calculation, Astra's attack buffs slightly disadvantage W engines that increase attack. Anby's best in slot is going to be her signature W engine, Severed Innocence. This W engine has a base attack of 713 and increases crit damage by 48%. As for its effect, crit damage will be further increased by 30%, and when a basic attack, special, or aftershock hits an enemy, crit damage will be increased by 10%, stacking up to 3 times and lasting for 30 seconds. Once 3 stacks have been achieved, electric damage will be increased by 20%. This is Anby's best overall option, but it's not at all necessary to get, as Anby has other viable S-Rank and A-Rank options. Heartstring Nocturne, Evelyn's signature W engine, is a very strong alternative just for how much crit it provides. Zanshin Herb Case is also another decent alternative. Riot Suppressor and Deep Sea Visitor can also be used for the bonus crit. The Brimstone, a standard S-Rank W engine, is another decent option, and you can use it if you already have it. Starlight Engine and Marcato Desire are both decent and free A-Rank options. The Starlight Engine is less conditional than Marcato Desire and would usually come out slightly on top. Cannon Rotor, the Battle Pass W engine, can also be used, although it doesn't necessarily outperform the Starlight Engine. Moving on to teams, Soldier Zero Anby, being an attack agent, would usually want to be paired with a stun and support agent, much like other attack agents. Anby's faction bonus, which increases her crit rate and squad members' aftershock damage, can also be activated by having either unit in your squad. For your support agent, alongside Anby, Astra is usually the best option. Astra buffs attack, damage bonus, and crit damage. She can also trigger multiple quick assists, allowing you to switch between your stun agent and Anby. Aside from Astra, you can also use Rena, who increases squad members' pen ratio. Rena is also an electric agent and can help build up the electric attribute anomaly. Nicole is a pretty strong A-Rank support agent who decreases enemies' defense but also buffs crit rate through her M6. You can also use Lucy, who buffs attack and increases crit damage through her M4. As for stunners, the upcoming S-Rank stun agent Trigger is going to be the best option for this slot. Trigger can stun enemies from off-field and also trigger Aftershocks, dealing off-field damage while stunning the enemies and allowing Anby to stay on-field to deal damage. Pulchra is a great alternative to Trigger, who can also stun enemies from off-field while triggering Aftershocks. Pulchra can also increase squad members' Aftershock damage. Qingyi is a pretty universal stunner, who can also work with Anby. However, unlike Trigger or Pulchra, Qingyi doesn't deal Aftershock damage and needs some more on-field time to stun enemies, but in turn, she provides a very strong damage buff. You could also use other stunners, such as A-Rank Anby, to have a double Anby team, but if the stunner isn't providing meaningful buffs to Soldier Zero Anby, you could just run 2 support agents instead. Double stun could also be viable with stunners like Pulchra and Trigger, who can both stun enemies from off-field and deal a lot of aftershock damage. This team could also end up being pretty competitive and one of her best teams, although I haven't really played it myself. And finally, Mindscapes. Soldier Zero Anby's first Mindscape will allow her X special to trigger the effects of the 3 White Thunder stacks, which would also activate the Lightning Strike. This just makes playing her even simpler and wouldn't really be a damage increase. M2 increases Anby's crit rate by 12%, and when she uses her ultimate, she gains 6 stacks of Thunder's Cry. Instead of consuming the White Thunder stacks to trigger the Aftershock attack, a stack of Thunder's Cry can be consumed instead. This Mindscape increases crit rate and also allows her to trigger more Aftershocks, making it a pretty decent stopping point. M3 and M5 are both skill level increases. M4 will allow Anby to ignore 12% of enemies' electric resistance if they're marked with the silver star mark. And lastly, M6 will deal 1000% of Anby's attack as electric damage after 6 instances of the White Thunder Aftershock damage have been triggered. This damage also counts as Aftershock damage. Overall, Anby has decent buffs to her damage through her Mindscapes, especially her M2, M4, and of course M6. But you don't need to get them at all, since she is already strong at M0. And that's all for this guide. It's cool to see A-Rank characters like Anby get their S-Rank upgrade, and hopefully we also get to see more S-Rank variants of A-Rank agents in the future. Thank you for making it to the end, and thank you for watching.